Hey guys, Mech1Man here, and today I'm going to be showing off another ship that I built in Space Engineers. This ship is for the new survival update for Space Engineers that just came out, and I'm going to be going over some of the features of the ship, which I call a space U-boat. It's a little silly, but the basic idea of the ship, and this will be a short video today because the ship is so small. The basic idea of the ship is to be a very cheap alternative to a larger fighting ship, and the reason that I've done this idea in contrast to a larger ship, is that with the new survival update, it takes longer to get like a base off the ground, especially in multiplayer. So in multiplayer, you may need large ships if you start in space or get into space quickly. You may need large ships that aren't like a drain on your, uh, base's resources, you and your team, building space engineers. So I've designed this ship. So before we fly it around and shoot some stuff, the first thing I would like to mention is the cockpit is protected by some windows. Alternatively, if you were in a very dangerous environment and you didn't really care about like your visual line of sight, you could move this cockpit around here. There is space back here, right in this block and in this block area, um, these two areas. And then So another thing that's interesting about the ship is the thruster arrangement. So the thrusters are meant to be as spread out as possible so that one like rocket strike couldn't really take out the entire ship. And the conveyor, the most vulnerable part of the ship mainly is the conveyor area, but this can be remedied if you load up your rocket launchers before you engage in a battle. Then there won't be anything that needs to go through these conveyors anyways. Since none of these are cargo containers, because the ship is meant to be somewhat expendables, so that the idea would be that this would be used as an escort for a larger or a cargo ship. So the thrusters are meant to be kind of spread out, and they kind of are. Majority of the thrusters in the back to make it go forward, so it can accelerate at great speed. And all this armor you're seeing here is light, because to put heavy would only be a drain on resources, and would make this ship worse than it would perform its task worse. There's also a beacon here, which is pretty explanatory. And another thing that I'm sure you've noticed is that the ship is 2 blocks high. So the entire idea of the ship is to be cheap, as I said before, but also when I was designing this, I wanted it to be printable. So something that could be easily printable so that it wouldn't take very much time to weld. And this can be printed, of course, without a weld wall since it's only 2 blocks wide. You can just have a welder ship, and it only takes 2 rounds, or perhaps 1 round if you're very good at what you're doing. 1 or 2 rounds to fly the ship around. All right, so now that we've gone over, how we built the ship, it's time to go over, how it flies. So it flies well, you know, flies well. So there's not much I can say really about that. And it rotates somewhat slowly, but it's a large ship, so that's somewhat to be expected. Um, this ship can fly on the moon, as you're seeing here, and it can fly in any of the lower gravity bodies in the Space Engineer solar system. The only concerns you have to have is that if you're doing a lot of heavy maneuvers, it can drain your power, which you can see in the bottom right corner of my screen. So you can run out of power very quickly. Alright, so now it's time to test out my ship. Alright, so the first ship we're going to be testing this U-boat on is that enemy ship over there. It's one of my basic designs. It's not super powerful, but it's a pretty large ship. So we are just inside the moon's gravity area, so hopefully we'll see a spectacular crash if I am successful. And this will basically show off the U-boat's combat capabilities, which center around the rockets in the front. That's all there is. And if you were using this design for yourself, you could attach turrets to the bottom if since there's so many conveyor spots, if you wanted to have more of a turret arrangement. So flying in here, main thing that we have to do is avoid dodging or avoid all the rockets, which can be done pretty easily in this ship. Oh boy, never mind, I was wrong. But either way, oh well, I am having suffering damage, and this will show off some of the escape capabilities of this ship. It can accelerate pretty quickly, and as you can see, we're already out of turret range of the enemy ship. So I'll go in for another run in a second. See if the rockets still work. All right, so basically that showed off that the glass on front was instrumental in saving the cockpit. As you can see, the cockpit's still at 100%. So despite the fact that the ship is on fire and in flames, I'm sure it could still, wreak some significant damage on the enemy ship. Oh, it looks like oh, we're drifting away. Let's fix that. All right, well, let's go on for another round. It looks like the enemy ship is falling to the planet, so that's good. We did cripple it and sink it. This U-boat was not as perfect as I desired, but that does kind of make sense since it's a very cheap alternative to a larger capital ship. And let's see. Oh, we're gonna get shot at here. All right. Well, probably gonna have to do it. Seems like they break on that for me. So overall, the enemy ship, yeah, the missile turrets are set not to target players, so I can fly in here just fine. The enemy ship wasn't heavily damaged, although the U-boat was able to cripple enough systems. These were pretty open, but either way, the U-boat is able to do enough damage to sink a ship in orbit, and if this was in space, it can cripple the ship, preparing it for attack by a larger, more expensive ship to make sure that your expensive ship isn't just immediately destroyed by the enemy turrets. So I hope you guys enjoyed. This was my U-boat ship design. If you would like the U-boat ship design, just leave a comment and I will put it on the Steam Workshop. Yeah. All right. See you.